welcome to the News on NTA International. I'm Lami Ali. The sign language interpreter is Precious Ozoimena. We begin with the headlines. President Bola Tinubu approves deployments of new permanent secretaries. Federal High Court Abuja to rule on Showere's no case submission. European leaders call for greater strategic independence and cooperation as President Trump rethinks America's role in NATO. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has approved the deployments of 4 federal permanent secretaries who were earlier appointed and sworn in. The deployment is part of ongoing efforts to strengthen governance, enhance service delivery, and ensure effective policy implementation in line with the Renewed Hope agenda. Their posting is designed to optimize performance, foster inter-ministerial collaboration, and drive sustainable developments across key sectors of the economy. The permanent secretaries and their assigned offices are as follows: Bekeria Debo Augusta Warrens Bayelsa, Political and Economic Affairs, Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation; Dr. Camila Inde Shoretire, Ogun State, Federal Ministry of Labor and Employment; Nkiruka Bello Jones Nebo, Enugu State, Career Management Office, Office of the Head of the Civil Service of the Federation; Sani Elgaya Aminu, Kano State, Special Services Office, Cabinet Affairs Office, Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. The Head of the Civil Service of the Federation, Didi Esther Wilson-Jack, congratulates the new permanent secretaries and urged them to bring their expertise to bear in their new assignments. She emphasized the importance of professionalism, accountability, and results-oriented leadership in achieving the federal government's developmental goals. Ahead of the 2027 general election, the federal government of Nigeria has insisted that a professional, ethical, and responsible media will be central to ensuring free, fair, peaceful, and credible exercise. As a press briefing to commemorate the year 2026 World Press Freedom Day in Abuja, the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, urged the media to resist the spread of harmful narratives that undermine democratic processes, public trust, and national stability. Salihu Abdullahi Gwanara reports.
Critical stakeholders have converged here to deepen partnership and recommit themselves towards ensuring that media continue to perform its role as an important pillar of democracy.
I also look forward to the Ministries of Information and National Orientation to commemorate the World Press Freedom Day, sensitize and engage stakeholders at the various state levels.
We reaffirm a commitment to the safety of all media practitioners under my leadership. The Nigerian Police Force has prioritized the protection of journalists as a fundamental human right.
While protecting media independence, we must also encourage fact-checking, ethnic standards, and responsible use of digital platforms.
The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, insisted that under the leadership of President Bola Tinubu, the lives of journalists matters and is building a resilient, credible, and inclusive information ecosystem that supports democratic governance, national unity, and sustainable development.
Press freedom, as has been outlined earlier, comes with enormous responsibility. Media practitioners must continue to uphold the highest standards of professionalism anchored on accuracy, fairness, ethical conduct, and fact-based reporting. In an era where false information spreads so rapidly, responsible journalism is not optional. It is essential to national stability and public trust.
With the theme, Shaping the Future at Peace, promoting press freedom as a human right, development, and security, the government spokesman wants actions beyond words.
I will continue to remind the DGDSS. I will also continue to remind the IG of Police of what was mentioned here today. We must work collaboratively as a government to protect freedom of expression, freedom of expression.
World Press Freedom Day is celebrated every year on May 3rd to, among others, remind governments of their duty to respect and uphold the rights of freedom of expression as recognized in United Nations principles. In Abuja, Salihu Abdullah Higuanara, NTA News.
Speakers of the National Assemblies of Nigeria and the Gambia are advocating ECOWAS regions to remain a living covenant of peace and shared prosperity in response to the expectations of over 400 million citizens to safeguard democracy. This was re-echoed during the opening of the 2026 First Ordinary Session of the 6th Parliament in Abuja. Muhammad Rabiu Ali reports.
Another session is here, with attendees from the 12 member countries, excluding Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. The session is coming at a time of profound consequence across the Sahel, persistent threats of terrorism and violent extremism. Speakers of the Parliament of Gambia and Nigeria say ECOWAS must confront these trends with clarity and courage, underpinned by trust, dialogue, to shared values.
ECOWAS has established frameworks to support these objectives. The focus now must be on implementation. Early warning mechanisms, peer review processes, and technical support for member states should be strengthened to ensure that democratic standards are upheld consistently. Regional integration cannot be sustained by treaties alone. The strains on constitutional order in parts of our community and the signals of disengagement from regional commitments pose a direct threat and challenge to our cohesion and credibility of the ECOWAS project.
The leadership of the ECOWAS Parliament believed in a broader dimension to the role of Parliament in the current global environment, strengthening frameworks to support these objectives as paramount.
He is therefore a devoted servant of our community, whose deep knowledge of our institution and our region will be of great value to the Parliament in the discharge of its mandate.
The session will last for 2 weeks. In Abuja, Muhammad Rabiu Ali, NTA News.
European and Canadian leaders are calling for greater strategic independence and closer cooperation as they meet in Armenia under the shadow of former U.S. President Donald Trump and shifting global alliances. Details with Justin Bemui.
Establishment of peace.
At the European Political Community Summit in Yerevan, leaders are focused on strengthening defense capabilities and reducing reliance on external powers amid growing geopolitical uncertainty. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, attending as the first non-European leader at the forum, said countries are not destined to accept a more transactional and unstoppable global order, urging deeper cooperation between like-minded partners. The summit comes as transatlantic tensions intensify, with Washington signaling troop reductions in Europe and adopting a more unilateral approach to trade and security. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen warned that Europe must strengthen its defense capacity and pursue greater autonomy in security matters. Canada, meanwhile, has moved closer to the European Union, joining its defense financing framework as part of efforts to diversify away from dependence on the United States. European Council President Antonio Costa welcomed the partnership, describing Canada as a key ally in a shifting global landscape. The summit, originally created in 2022 in response to the war in Ukraine, is increasingly seen as a platform for countries seeking alternatives to traditional US-led security arrangements. Justin Bemuni, NTA News.
Now, Iran has issued a stern warning to the United States to keep its forces out of the strategic Strait of Hormuz, following remarks by former U.S. President Donald Trump about plans to assist stranded ships caught in the ongoing conflicts. Here again is Justin Bemunyi with the details.
Tehran says any attempt by foreign forces to enter the waterway will be met with force, escalating tensions in one of the world's most critical oil routes. The warning comes after Trump announced that the U.S. would help guide commercial vessels trapped in the Gulf, many of which have been stranded for weeks as fighting between Israel and Iran disrupts maritime movement. In a statement, Iran's Unified Military Command insisted that the security of the Strait of Hormuz remains firmly under its control, directing all commercial traffic to coordinate movements exclusively with Iranian forces. Authorities in Tehran also cautioned that any unapproved entry, particularly by U.S. military assets, would be considered a direct threat. The crisis has already severely impacted global energy markets, with Iran restricting most shipping through the narrow channel, effectively cutting off nearly a fifth of the world's oil and gas supply and driving prices sharply upward. Justin Bemunyi, NTA News.
To health matters now, the World Health Organization says there is no cause for alarm after a suspected hantavirus outbreak aboard a cruise ship in the Atlantic left 3 people dead and several others ill. Again, Justin Bemunyi reports.
Health officials say the risk to the wider public remains low, stressing there is no need for panic or travel restrictions. The outbreak occurred on the expedition vessel MV Hondius, operated by Ocean-Wide Expeditions, which was sailing near Cape Verde at the time of the incident. The ship had departed Argentina about 3 weeks earlier, carrying around 150 passengers on a polar voyage that included stops in Antarctica. According to WHO Europe Director Hans Kluge, hantavirus infections are rare and typically linked to contact with infected rodents, with limited human-to-human transmission. Authorities say one of the affected passengers is currently in intensive care in South Africa, while laboratory tests have so far confirmed the virus in one case. The WHO says it is working closely with relevant countries to support medical response efforts, evacuation procedures, and further investigations into the outbreak. Officials maintain that while the situation is serious for those affected, the likelihood of wider spread remains minimal. Justin Bemunyi, NTA News.
The United Arab Emirates says its exit from OPEC was a sovereign decision and will not disrupt global energy stability. Energy Minister Sohail Al-Mazroui says the country left OPEC on good terms, describing the UAE as a responsible producer committed to market stability. He says the country will now engage major producers bilaterally while continuing to balance global supply needs with domestic industrial demand. The UAE officially exited OPEC on May 1, 2026, ending decades of membership. On rising tensions in the Straits of Hormuz, he warns that no single power should control the key shipping routes, citing risks to global trade and energy security. The move comes as Iran and the United States escalate competing plans over maritime access, heightening concerns in the global oil market.
No, I think this is not the first time that a member country exit the group. It happened before, and the group has been relatively calm about it. Everyone realized that this is a sovereign decision. Everyone realized that UAE will be, as well, and as we said, a responsible producer. We're not new to this market. We understand it. We will always be acting responsibly, and we will be, as an individual producer, hopefully an enabler for growth. Hopefully, we will contribute as well to the world stability between supply and demand. And I'm confident that we will be working with so many nations, including the members of OPEC and OPEC Plus, but bilaterally rather than as part of a group.
World leaders are ramping up calls to slash methane emissions from the fossil fuel sector, warning that inaction could worsen climate change and deepen global energy instability. At a high-level meeting convened by France, officials, industry leaders and experts stressed the need for faster and more coordinated action ahead of the COP31 climate summit. The talks come amid ongoing supply disruptions linked to tensions in the Middle East, which have intensified concerns over global energy security. Methane, the second largest contributor to global warming after carbon dioxide, is significantly more potent in the short term, trapping far more heat in the atmosphere over a 20-year period. French Ecological Transition Minister Monique Baboud called for stronger collaboration, noting that no single country or sector can tackle the challenge alone. Under the Global Methane Pledge, nearly 160 countries committed to cutting emissions by 30% by 2030. However, officials say progress remains far off track. Watching News at 7 from the studios of NT International. Nigeria is strengthening transparency in climate action under the Paris Agreement on Climate Change as the Federal Ministry of Environment inaugurates a steering committee for the Capacity Building Initiative for Transparency Projects, supported by the Global Environment Facility. Charles Alpha reports.
In a bid to advance climate transparency efforts in line with the Paris Agreement on climate change, Nigeria is requiring accurate reporting of greenhouse gas emissions. And to support this, the Global Environment Facility established the Capacity Building Initiative for Transparency Project to strengthen data systems and coordination.
Today, we set the tone for how Nigeria strengthens its climate transparency system under the Paris Agreement. Transparency to all of us is not paperwork. It is the backbone of credible climate action.
In Nigeria, the initiative is led by the Federal Ministry of Environment with support from the Food and Agriculture Organization and the Nigerian Conservation Foundation.
This project will strengthen institutional framework for greenhouse gas data management with greater accuracy, consistency, and credibility.
The goal of CBIT projects everywhere executed in the world is to assist countries in meeting ETF requirements, strengthening the capacities for monitoring environmental emissions within the key GHG emitting sectors. The things that we are lacking is data and reliable data. And I'm hoping that at the end of this project, we'll be able to have reliable data that we can work with, that will be able to form evidence-based policy that our policymakers will be able to rely on.
So this is very important because the objectives are similar, the scope similar, which is building mutual trust and confidence among stakeholders.
The committee is expected to guide the development of a robust system for greenhouse gas data management and reporting, critical to Nigeria's credibility in global climate governance. Charles Alpha, NT News.
In Jigawa State, the future looks promising for agriculture, youth empowerment and rail transformation as strategic investments are being made in these areas in line with the President's drive towards a greater Nigeria. This was further reinforced when the presidential media team visited the northwest states to see developments firsthand. Jonathan Omajali reports.
When the presidential media team visited the Malam Aminu Triangle in Dutse to inspect modern equipment acquired to boost mechanized farming in the state, they saw a scale of investment that surpassed expectations. Last year, the state was the second largest producer of rice in the country and comes first in the production of several crops.
You should know that Jigawa State is an agrarian state. We are the first producer of hibiscus in the country. We are the first in sesame. We are the first in wheat, sorghum, and so many other crops.
With this investment, there is even more to expect.
The executive governor procured 300 newly tractors complete with their implements, 80 boom sprayers, 60 combined harvesters, 150 rice seeders, 150 maize seeders, and a host of other equipment.
Agriculture is only one aspect of the state's collaboration with the federal government. At the renewed Hope Technical Facility, a scale acquisition center focused on fabrication and welding, the team was briefed on ongoing efforts to build local technical capacity and reduce dependence on foreign expertise.
We can be able to feed the oil companies with young people working in the ships, in the oil companies, and all related kind of oil activities that are going on. At the same time, we are going to also be able to construct what we require in the state. The porter cabins, the bunk beds for boarding schools, the hospital beds, and any other kind of equipment that is required.
We came here, we learned a lot of things here, like welding and fabrication. As you can see, everything that you see here, we fabricate it here.
The visit also took the team to the Bola Ahmed Tinubu Multipurpose Scale Acquisition Center, an initiative designed to empower young people with practical skills, promote self-reliance, and address youth unemployment. The team further inspected a branch line of the ongoing rail project and received briefing on progress made on the Kaduna-Kano-Jigawa-Katsina-Maradi rail corridor.
This part is the branch line. It's coming from Kano to Duse, and the project has attained 60% completion progress. The project is expected to complete it from Kano, Jigawa, Katsina, December this year.
Like the states earlier visited, Jigawa provides another demonstration of Nigeria's strategic investment in critical sectors aimed at improving livelihoods and driving sustainable development. Jonathan Omajali, NTA News.
The Theatre Command Joint Task Force Operation Hatlin Kai and the Adamawa State government have reaffirmed commitment to strengthening security architecture, improving response mechanisms, and safeguarding lives and property across the state and the Northeast region. The assurance was given during operational assessment visit to the state by the Theatre Commander of Operation Hatlin Kai, Major General Abdul Salam Abubakar, following recent security developments. During the visit to Adamawa, the State Governor Ahmadu Umaru Fintiri, represented by the Deputy Governor, Professor Kalitapwa George Farota, expressed appreciation to the military for their role in enhancing security in the state despite the recent setbacks. The Theatre Commander, Major General Abdul Salam Abubakar, stated that his visit is aimed at conducting comprehensive operational assessments to address emerging threats and strengthen ongoing efforts in the region, and commended the consistent support of the state government to the military operations. Now, poor investigations, lack of coordination between prosecuting agencies have been identified as some of the challenges facing the court in its ability to arrive at a just and informed decision on issues relating to child justice and human rights. The Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Kudirat Kekere, stated this in a message to the opening of the biannual National Workshop on Child Justice and Human Rights at the instance of the National Judicial Institute, Abuja. Dele Atumbi of our Judiciary Desk reports.
The biennial National Workshop on Child Justice and Human Rights brings together institutions whose responsibilities directly affect the protection, welfare, and future of children within the society. Participants are of the view that matters involving children continue to come before the courts in forms that are deeply concerning, ranging from cases of neglect and abuse to trafficking, exploitation, and family breakdown. They agree that these are not isolated occurrences, but a reflection of recurring patterns that inevitably call for a more deliberate and coordinated response from all institutions. For judicial officers as officers in the Temple of Justice, the responsibility is immediate and unavoidable. Participants say the courtroom must not become an environment that compounds the vulnerability of a child. To achieve this, proceedings must be conducted with restraints, control, and a clear awareness of the impact of judicial conduct. This is shown in the manner in which evidence is received, the tone adopted in addressing young persons, and the general management of such cases must reflect the seriousness of the issues before the court.
Funds will engage not only with the legal principles involved, but also with the practical deficiencies that continue to affect outcomes in this area. The objective must be to identify and address those gaps in a manner that leads to measurable improvements.
For the biennial national workshop on child justice and human rights, this agreement is designed with a clear aim to bridge existing gaps by fostering unity among key stakeholders in our shared mission to improve justice for children.
Participants at the biennial national workshop on child justice and human rights are also examining how children in conflict with the law are handled. In Abuja, Dele Atumbi, NTA News.
The Federal High Court Abuja Division has fixed 8 May 2026 to rule on the no-case submission entered by Omoyele Sowore in the 2-count charge of cybercrimes case instituted against him by the Department of State Services. Judiciary correspondent Austin Anyabe reports.
Omoyele Sowore is standing trial for allegedly using social media platform to allege President Bola Tinubu of commission of crime when he went to Brazil, lying that there is no longer corruption in Nigeria, an offense the DSS says violates the Cybercrimes Prevention and Prohibition Act. The prosecution, led by Akinlolu Kehinde, senior advocate of Nigeria, had called a witness, a DSS personnel, who recorded the said social media content and gave oral evidence in court, and equally cross-examined by the defense counsel for days. With the closure of the prosecution's case, Sowore was to open his defense, instead entered a no-case submission. The thrust of the issues formulated for determination in a no-case submission by the defendant is that the prosecution has not been able to establish a case against him, being that he could not call a vital witness. The defense counsel, Mash Abubakar, in adopting the no-case submission, said there is nothing before the court to warrant the sustenance of the case. The DSS prosecution, led by Akinlolu Kehinde, senior advocate of Nigeria, responding to the no-case submission by the defendant, adopted all the processes filed and urged the court to refuse the no-case submission and order the defendant to open his defense. To this end, Justice Muhammad Umar fixed 8 May 2026 for ruling on the no-case submission. From the Federal High Court, Abuja, Austin Anyibe, NTA News.
And that wraps up the news at this time on NTA International. We thank you for watching. I am Lami Ali, and Precious Ozomina has been the sign language interpreter. Do have a good evening.